Welcome, everyone. We do have all the boards. 2 board members are on Zoom, so they are present. Any person present who wishes to address the board or raise any questions about public school district matters or governing policies may do so under public participation. No discussion of personnel or individual students is permitted at this time. A limit of 3 minutes will be placed on each speaker. Persons who want more time may make arrangements to be placed on a future agenda. As a courtesy, all cell phones should be turned off. The public is also reminded they may provide input on all motions being considered by the board at this meeting. So we're going to move on. I have one public comment from Alan Irvin. So you're up.
Question. Is it accessible for me to give the board a document to look at?
Yeah.
Please, thank you. Section or 8 there. I think there has to be 4. You know, is it okay with you if I stay seated while I...
That's fine.
Sorry, I've had my prosthetic taken away by my doctor for a few weeks. Okay. What I've handed out is 2 pages. One is one of the class progress reports on the new standard-based grading system. For my son, I took his name off so he's not embarrassed. The second is from the school he used to go to. I got a hold of a parent over there because I didn't have any of these saved. These are the type of progress reports we got at the last school. And so that parent went ahead and made a copy of the one that she did have from her student and blacked it all out for me and sent it to me. It's no secret here that I'm very much against standards-based grading and reporting. I wanted to show an example. On the first page, if under, take either one of the 2 items that there's P's for, if it wasn't a P, if it was, needing improvement, nearing proficient, I'd look at that and say, okay, there's somewhere there's a deficiency in my son, in that case. He needs to learn more. And I'd say, okay, so what do I do about that? You look at the second page. At this point, there's 2 F's. There's specific assignments. When I got these at the other school, and it was all the way through the semester, by the time it was done, there was a list a page long, maybe a page and a half long, of all of the assignments, all of the tests, and all of the scores. And I could check them regularly. And if there was an F or a C, whatever it was, I could look at it. Of course, the biggest concerns were the F's that typically means they didn't get turned in. So I could say to my son, get me that assignment. Let's see what the assignment was. Normally, and this is English class that she sent me here, which is a great example because my son's a straight A student, but there's certain types of writing, as much as he loves to write, there's certain types he really hates. And more than once, I found an F. And I said, go get me that assignment. And sometimes he had it, sometimes he doesn't. If he did it, we could log on to Google Classroom together, and the teachers put all the assignments on there. And I could actually print the bugger off and say, here it is. Let's look at this. Now, when he didn't do 2 assignments, like these, whoever this is has the 2 F's, it might have been both on this type. I could easily see my son's weaknesses with this type of writing assignment. I didn't need this other description. More than that is it was immediately actionable. This is an actual piece of homework that he didn't do. I can take that, sit down with him and work on it, or if it's just that he doesn't like it, I can say, you're not getting to play video games until this is done. And he gets the job done. There's no question in the teacher's mind as to what my son's strengths and weaknesses are. Show me a teacher that doesn't know that about all of the students in their class. And I'll show you a very incompetent teacher. That's what teachers do. They know their kids. They know what the weaknesses and what the strengths are. This gives the parents an immediate, actionable item to help with whatever that problem is. A description that is, at the yellow on determining 2 or more central ideas of text and analyze their development. You know what? I'm not an English teacher. I can't look at that and come up with an assignment and say, okay, do this to get better. This does. Plus, the percentages. Now, in this case, they're all worth 10 points. Now, this is going to come up in a little bit. Please notice that. Out of 7, I believe there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 assignments here. 2 of them are complete zeros. And yet it's still a passing grade to C minus, just barely. But if that was an A, I would want to know the difference between whether it was a 91% or a 98% or 101%. Maybe he's done something extra and deserves real great kudos. That matters. The P is frustrating as heck for me because, as some other parents have discussed with me, they also have good students. And each of those parents now has had the experience of the students saying, why not even bother to go to school tomorrow? Because when they start out in a new proficiency item, they get it very quickly. And they're P, it's done. Why bother continuing? Also, how is this helping them to achieve their potential? I understand the system is made to help kids that are struggling to get a letter grade that is better. I would argue whether it's actually going to help them to learn better or be smarter, but they're going to come away with a better letter grade. How is it helping all of the kids along whatever level they are reach their potential? Because right now, all they have to do is reach the P. And you know what? The standard for reaching P is not very darn high. So there's something else coming up. Mr. President, please tell me if I'm wrong. I do have this right down there. At your talk on standard-based grading and reporting, I do have the video, but I've not gone back and looked at it. I do believe you said something about you're still thinking about the idea of 0 to 50%. That's going to be what the future is with that. This is what's coming. I believe it's going to be coming. And I want you to be aware of it. Minnesota Middle School eliminates Fs to combat systemic racism. Or what do you think is to combat racism or whatever else? That isn't the issue. This woman writes, grade inflation is a horrible corruption. In the case of eliminating Fs at Sunrise Park Middle School, this inflation does nothing to help struggling students. It simply masks areas where they may struggle academically, advancing them when they're unprepared for more rigorous work. Why is this an issue? This is written by Will Silkman Fellow in Education Policy at the Heritage Foundation. There's a bunch of others. It's not a matter, and there's tons of that. Why is this an issue? Standards-based grading and reporting. I had 8 documents sent by the curriculum director at this high school. 7 of them were by an assistant professor and professor at Kentucky University. The chief guy being Thomas Dusty. I'm sure you're all very familiar. If you haven't read his stuff, someone's not been paying attention. There's a lot of things about these papers that I love. One is how within their own papers, they constantly refer back to their own papers as supporting evidence into each other. And then she refers back to him, and he refers back to her. Great thing going on. One of his papers is solving the problems of zeros in grading. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. I don't believe I'd have time in the 3 minutes. But a couple items to point out. To recover from a single 0% grade, a student must achieve a minimum of 9 perfect papers. I'm an engineer, I do math. But you don't have to be an engineer, you have to be great in math to just simply do the math, and that is preposterous. Look at the example in front of you. There's 2 zeros on there out of only 7 grades, and it's still a passing grade. And that is with hundreds. But let's say that it's 75s instead. Please do the math. I could do it, I'd waste your time. That statement is preposterous. Ironically, the true culprit in this matter is not minimum grades or the 0, it's the percentage grading system. There is nothing sacred about percentages in grading. We use them today because we use electronic grading programs developed by software engineers with a fondness for a 0 to 100 scale. Does anybody believe that the 0 to 100% scale was not used until computers existed or until calculators existed? It's been used for decades and decades, and I'm not an expert, but I bet it go back at least a century or 2. It's very simple. It's not something that someone came up with arbitrarily. If you want to say how well someone did on a test of 20 items, you take the number of items they got right, divide it by the total, and it comes up with a number. It's going to be a decimal point something. It's a lot easier for a human brain to say, move the decimal point over 2 places and call it percent. So instead of getting a 0.9, you get a 90%. It has nothing, it existed long before computers existed, before calculators existed. It's a simple mathematical concept. Nothing eliminates that. And you know what? It happens to be dead accurate. Little ways further down, he says, 2/3 of the marks in a percentage grading system denote levels of failure. 1/3 of the marks are considered passing. So he's saying 0 to 70% is failing. Yes, it should be. Do we want to send kids out of school with passing grades that can't get 2/3, I mean over 70% of the test right, or of the problems right, or whatever it is? Good heavens to mercy. So you eliminate the 0 to 50%. And now the student takes the test, gets none, we still get 50%. I don't know how that's going to work. Because that is grade inflation. That's what the L is referring to in the other paper. That is total grade inflation. So now the student takes a test and gets only 25% right. He still gets 50? Or does he get something added on to the 50? Because 0 equals 50, so what does 25 equal now? And what about the student who works really hard and does get the 65%? Whereas this person got 15? How is the grades going to be having meaning when the 15 now becomes 65 or the 65 gets 65? Who knows where that is? The point is, this isn't making kids smarter. It's dumbing down the grading system to make you look better without having the knowledge. You know, in Oregon, they just eliminated writing and reading requirements from high school graduation. The state of California, for the university system, just eliminated college entrance exams because it's discriminating against lower performing kids getting into college. That's where this is going, folks. It's right here, it's right in front of our eyes. It couldn't be more simple. So all I do is, I don't know how many parents are going to ever speak up on this. I have a feeling once they realize this and once more realize what's going on, you're going to get a lot more involvement here. I am not going out and trying to marshal the forces. If parents are involved, then it's not my job to get them involved. To whatever extent. Please think about it. This is what's going on. And the 0 to 50% is next coming up here. And what does it really do? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to facilities report. Does anybody have any questions for Mark? Or people on Zoom? I got to remember they're there.
Oh, it's interesting how it's looking more and more like quarters now, you know? It's kind of evening out. It's cool.
The question I had is those guards that were too short on the pumps. Was that a guy that we had made, or is that what came from the manufacturer?
Came from the manufacturer.
Okay, that's what I was,
And I didn't correct the ones in the middle school because when they didn't be in the primary, I had 9 pumps and I only picked 2 that were fit, so.
Okay, but it was, so it's not something that we removed or something like that. From the manufacturer, they came not according to what safety standards should have been. Okay, that was my only question.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mark. All right, curriculum.
Hi, my name is Kira Wolf, and I will be sharing on behalf of our curriculum director, Andrea Myers, tonight. I'm interning with her. I'm going back to school to get my administrative leadership degree through Rocky, so this is just a great opportunity for me to practice some skills and connect with the board. I have been working closely with her this year, so I was just going to share a little bit about what she put together for you this evening. I'm sure you've all had a chance to review what she shared with you before the meeting. So just in a general sense, we were talking about why standards-based grading and reporting is important. So kind of in the same theme of how things have started off tonight. And just in a general sense, I think what we really want our grades and reports to do is we want them to just be consistent and accurate, and we want them to support the learning that's actually happening in our classrooms. And I know it's so hard sometimes when we feel like we have a system and we know it, and none of us like to change that much, but if we don't change, we're also never kind of moving forward and moving with the times. The standards, the original grading and reporting system that we've used so far was kind of made out of the Industrial Revolution. And obviously jobs and the world today, the way our societies run, is a lot different than that time. And so we're trying to find ways to show and celebrate what kids actually know and are able to do. And a point that I think needs to be very clear is that the standard is the minimum. So if your child is proficient at the standard in their grade level, that's the minimum guarantee. So if there's a kid in my second grade class and they meet the standard being able to use base 10 numerals and word form and expanded form, then that's the minimum level of requirement that we're guaranteeing at the second grade level. Of course, we're extending and teaching beyond that and differentiating still for all students based on their needs, which we've been doing the whole entire time. I think a good way to think about standards-based grading and reporting is just, I guess, a personal example that is probably not a proud moment to share, but back in the day when I took driver's ed, I got 100% on the written test because I was one of those students who could play the game and read the book and get the work done, but then I get into the car and did not quite pass the skills-based portion of the test. So I think sometimes you have real-life examples like that, that it's not just do these students have the process of sitting down and doing what we ask them to do, but do they actually have that skill, that learning target that we are searching for in that standard. And so, there have been changes because middle school and high school are new to the standards-based grading and reporting system with us. The K-5 buildings have been working on it for a couple of years now, and we've found a lot of success with that. I don't know if you noticed in Andrea's report that even big, well-renowned schools like MIT are switching more to this type of forward-thinking reporting system so that it's not so much can these kids play the school game, but do they actually have this skill set, and will they be ready for whatever career path they choose outside of our public school system. So, if there's any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer them. We also put together a little I took some data from some of the staff who have been to our Building Bridges Learning Institute, and so that is with a nationally renowned lady who has worked, I think she graduated from Harvard, is that right? So she's just got a wealth of knowledge in the curriculum background, and so we've actually signed a contract with her to work with her in the district for the next couple of years, and several staff have been able to attend her training sessions. So this little quick Google form just kind of put together feedback from staff and how they really view it. As you can see, it was mostly all positive. Maybe some areas that the admin team will chat about moving forward would be, now that we have these skill sets at our grade levels, how are we going to, find that vertical alignment piece and connect between K-12 grade levels and some of those things moving forward. So if there's any questions or comments about any of those pieces, I've attended all 3 levels myself, and this is my 6th year in the classroom at Rockwood, and so it's just very rewarding to see in that short amount of time that I've been here where we started and how far we've come in that short amount of time with the administration team we have in place kind of leading the way for some of these big changes.
I have a quick question. You might not have an answer to. Do you feel like there's ever a risk of standard-based grading creating complacency in the education? And that how do you guys kind of try and get ahead of that, knowing that that could be something maybe for someone who's tired of teaching or something?
Complacency, are you meaning just if my comments about the standard is kind of...
Or complacency in the teaching. So if we know that, the standard base, there's this proficiency level that they have to meet, if we notice that a teacher is maybe just barely doing that, what sort of things do you guys see kind of helping either mediate that when we become aware of it, or trying to get on top of it so it isn't, like there's still that engagement throughout their career?
Yeah, I think the biggest shift, are you okay with me taking that? Yeah. I think the biggest shift is understanding we need to be efficient in achieving and mastering the standards so we have the time to do everything else. Like, honestly, the thing we're trying to work and train our teachers in is the more efficient we get at mastering standards, the better we can get at doing all of the other things that are why most of us became teachers, to be honest. Most of us became educators to do those relevant and authentic and enriching types of projects or experiences that happen in classrooms. And because of this march to the standards, which sort of began with No Child Left Behind, if you'll allow me to say that, we have been kind of trapped in this system that's what race we're always running, is getting the standards, getting ready for a standardized test, and we have no choice in that race. We have a choice in how efficiently we can respond to that race and what that is, like what else will that allow us to do. So that's the other piece I would say. The other thing I didn't include in this particular report is if you watch, job skills are released every 5 years. So like job skills in 2020 have nothing to do with any academic content we teach in school. And I hope that doesn't come across as offensive or devaluing, because I love my job. I've been at this 15 years. I believe in public education. But what we need is to put out graduates who are able to collaborate, who are able to work in teams, who are problem solvers, flexible problem solvers, because we don't even know what career Kira students are going to enter when they graduate. It doesn't exist yet, likely. So watching those job skills too, part of this providing how we attack what we do with the content is also about allowing more time for our teachers to build in the opportunities for students to work together and to collaborate and to learn problem-solving skills and critical thinking skills and listening skills. One of the top jobs in Montana, on the top paying jobs in Montana, of the top 30 paying jobs, almost all of them require students who are able to make a pitch. So think Shark Tank. Now, is that explicitly written out in the curriculum? Not exactly, but the better and more efficiently we can address what students have to learn, the more opportunity we can provide to give them real-world applications. Like, how do you write a pitch? Are the skills built into the overarching curriculum? Yes, those standards have skills that apply to that. But drilling down about exactly how you collaborate, exactly how you make a sales pitch if you need to. All of those skills and watching what's happening around us is what I think, to me, that's what I'm passionate about. So being complacent, that has nothing to do with it at all. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I get excited about this stuff because it is a passion. I'm not doing this to make education an easier game for anyone.
Well, I'm going to follow along with that as I teach at a post-secondary institution. I have students who will lie, cheat, anything else to get that overarching A. And they're paying for their education. They don't care if they're actually learning it. All they care about is that A on the GPA, so it looks like they can place higher. And then it's a hands-on that I'm teaching. And they could care less if they actually understand the base knowledge and the skill set that they need to know. All they care about is that letter grade to be on the dean's list for that academics. And they're losing their education in the process of striving for that letter. Because I'm going to cheat, or I'm going to get online and I'm going to Google all the answers instead of actually taking the time and learning the material. Because the only thing that they have been taught all through their grade school life is you have to get the A, you have to get the A. I don't care what letter you get, but if you're a skilled worker when you leave, a C student may be more proficient than an A student because they actually have taken the time to comprehend what they're really learning. It's not just about getting the A and finding the right answer and not comprehending what they're reading. They can just regurgitate what the book has. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if this mindset in which we're training these students to reach and to comprehend and to strive for, to know the material, if that's going to make them a better learner than those students who are just grasping for that A so they can get that value of, well, I'm a 4.0 student without even maybe knowing the knowledge base, because they can, like your driver's ed thing, you can regurgitate it from a book. When they that's something some of my students do too, is sure they can regurgitate everything to it, but they actually can they actually perform the task? And so I think this is going to be interesting to see if we're shifting how those students perceive learning. And that learning isn't about getting that A, but learning is truly about learning.
Yeah, and
I think that makes sense.
that's the complete goal of MIT's policy. That's why schools, the research about valedictorians, that's why. Because what they found is overall it does more harm than good to identify valedictorians in schools, because it decreases the job value skills that we need to have for the workforce. But to be clear, also in my report, we did clarify very clearly in the report, the grading system, the traditional grading system that you're familiar with, the 100-point scale, that is a byproduct of the Industrial Revolution, which came about because we needed to sort, historically, the whole point was to sort laborers from management and maybe who would be college-bound. So we put the system in place to try to quickly identify. It didn't matter what task we gave, it didn't matter what content we taught. We wanted to know who could work in a factory and who may be able to lead those workers versus who may be able to run in the factory line, versus if they were academically inclined, they could stay in school. And I'm talking about past 8th grade. So absolutely, the grading scale we have currently has been around for over 100 years. Which has provided the opportunity for us to research it for over 100 years. So I don't want to mislead you, like that was in my report, and yeah, it has been around a long time, and that's why I think we're very familiar with it, so.
Can I just say one quick comment to Sylvia's question? Just from the teacher perspective, I think that complacency with standards-based grading and reporting is probably a lot smaller number among teachers than it would have been in the traditional system, just because once you know and understand this, all it does is give us back time to focus on instruction, and to focus on those learning moments with our kids instead of focusing on grading and reporting. This gives us back time to focus on teaching and learning, if that makes sense. So in a lot of ways, this system makes my job easier in that regard, because, I mean, you know, there's lots of moving parts still, and I'm not saying that this is something you pick up and you don't know how to do right away, but after you put in the time and the effort to understand it, my focus now, even in the 6 years I've spent in Longford's classrooms, has shifted from, you know, am I doing things in this quarter, getting the grades, like getting everything I needed done just to tell parents on this report card it's done, or is my view now shifted to planning, you know, learning activities and real-life applications and performance pieces, because we've already met our standards and can go from there. So I think complacency with this, you know, it may be hard in the beginning, and teachers and people in all jobs probably feel that when there's change and you have a million other things that you're already doing and then you have something new on your plate. But once it's in place, I think it's really valuable for our time in the classroom.
Tim, may I make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead, Pam.
I want to thank these ladies for putting this report together. It really went a long ways towards helping me understand the direction that the school is taking with their grading and reporting. And I'm very impressed with the report that they put together, and I want to thank them for the huge effort that this obviously was.
Please leave it down, I'm going to let you, because you're very passionate about this, so I think what you go ahead. I don't want to start a debate.
Okay, I can see the thought about complacency in teachers, and that's very valid. But I'm much more concerned about, what about complacency in the students? That's what this is about. We're asking students to have already retrieved their P, to stay motivated and keep doing more homework and more stuff that has nothing to do with it. We're talking about kids. This is human nature. Who's gonna choose to do that when they could play the video game? Even if mom and dad say no video games. We all know kids. This is absolutely defying, ignoring human nature. Every one of us was a kid once. If you've been a parent and you still think this is going to work, it floors me. But even if you weren't, you were a kid once. The reach for grades, the motivation to get grades, that is a huge part of the motivation to do well in school. That's why it was established, is to measure and say who's good at this and who isn't, and also for the kids then to say, hey, the people who are good at this get to go do this. I want that. And that's why it becomes important to get that good grade. As far as this, somehow this is going to result in doing other teaching special projects or something above and beyond what would have been done the other way, I am at a loss. So say on a Monday, 5 kids reach that P. It takes till next Wednesday for all the other kids to get there. How is that time been spent helping all the kids in the class reach their maximum potential? It is reaching a minimum. That's all there is. It is reaching a minimum. And after that, where's the motivation? Somehow, that is going to now have kids say, oh, now I'm more encouraged to learn. I want to learn even more. I'm really going to work harder than I would have before. Guys, this is absolutely denying human nature. It's not anything bad against anyone. It's human. It's who we all are. And we have to challenge our kids to do better. I'm at a loss as to the reasoning on that. And I don't know. I talked with parents and said, why am I sending my child to school the rest of this week?
So you're assuming that after your child reaches a P, that the teacher's just gonna stop giving them more stuff to do? To continue to push them to...
I hope the heck not, but I can tell you this, that their motivation to do it is gone. As I said, my son just missed a week of school, an entire week. And when we went back, I asked him yesterday, so how much do you have to make up? And he says, well, maybe 2 hours, and he got half of it done last night, and I get the other half done tonight. And he said, but it doesn't really matter, I've already got a B anyway. And he's also very good, and he understands this issue, and he says, despite that, I promise you, Dad, I'm going to do everything I can to always make it up if I miss something. Because I don't want to get complacent like that, but that's a lot of responsibility to put on me. He is a kid. I didn't answer that because it's not fair to him. It's not fair to kids to do that, to say, they are kids. They are kids. There has to be consequences for not doing the work, and there has to be rewards for doing it. And the reward goes away. Once the P is there, the reward is gone. And that is human nature. And I guarantee you, as you can tell, I'm very, very involved in my child's education. And I will not let this affect it. If I have to go out and get other homeschooling assignments and make him do them, to at least come close. I'm not a teacher, and it irritates the heck out of me that I might have to do it. But I'm going to help him reach his potential. He has great potential, I want him to reach it. I don't have any confidence that the school system right now is going to do that.
So, could I ask you a question? How many other kids in the community are you this involved with their education?
Everyone at the school.
So you know everyone at the school personally? You know this kid?
I don't.
So how many kids do you have?
But I'm not worried about this just because of my kid. I'm worried about it for all kids, not just in this school, but across the country.
That's why I'm asking, how many other kids do you interact with on a regular basis throughout the week that you know personally how they're doing in school?
Well, I don't know,
so I don't know their past. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Like you do with your son. How
Absolutely.
many other kids do you have that type of relationship with in this community?
Yeah.
This is a question. Like, 10,
Well, again, because he hasn't made friends yet.
No,
that's not true. He
I'm
hasn't
asking for you, how many do you have relationship with in this community, kids, the same type of relationship that you have with your son? So you know how they're doing, you know what their passion is, you know what their motive is.
Only through parents.
Okay, so
Only through parents.
I just wanted to find out, if you're kind of sharing your information based on what motivates your son. You really don't know what motivates these other kids.
I'm doing that based on life experience and being a human being myself.
So based on you and your son.
And
It's like, for me,
all the kids I've known, all the parents of kids I've known.
so one thing, I don't think this is supposed to be as nice as we debate this on that. But I will say this, so the principals that I have a relationship with and teachers, they know for sure that there's plenty of kids that pursue the A. And that's all they're after. And they get it, and you can get an A, you can memorize, you can take a test and get an A. That don't mean that you know the stuff. But also,
That doesn't mean that they don't know the stuff. If they memorize it, they know it.
no, see, that's where you need to get more relationships with more kids and find things out. You can have some very ignorant kids get A's. Ignorant meaning they don't know. They don't have it, meaning ask them next month, and they cannot take that test next month. But anyhow, on the flip side, if you really get to know kids and what motivates them and cares about them, and we're not concerned about getting an A and looking good, or maybe being the king or the queen, or it's a lot of pride in that. A lot of times, A can be considered a motivator in a good sense, like I see you say, but it also can be a very pride-motivated thing, and that's that human nature you're talking about. And the end result of pride is always destruction. So there is some negative to always trying to be the performer, to be the top, to be the best, to be the 101%. And I'm not against that, because I got two girls in college that were just that. But then we got a boy that's not so much that. And boy, there's a lot of weight that he's got to carry because he wasn't the A student. Well, I attempted algebra twice in high school, failed both times, barely made it through general math, flunked English, but yet, if you recall my employers, I was a very successful electrician for 25 years, started my own business. I started another organization, doing pretty well at that, but I was a D student at the best. So, whether I get an A or a D isn't my final determination of who I am, what's my motivation, if I'm going to be all that I possibly can be. There's just more to it, sir, is all I want.
Of course,
you understand that
there's a lot in the effort to help one thing that's a problem. I believe we're creating another problem that's even bigger.
And that's great, that's the nice thing about America, we all have our different belief systems, you know what I mean? But also, you do research, just like with so many other things, be certain to be open. We can all bring in paperwork from professionals and people with big degrees. I know from both sides, you know what I mean? We both understand that, right? I could go to the internet and get a stack of paper too. So I just want to encourage you, when you do read both sides, truly be open to what they're trying to accomplish on the other side. Make sure you're not just, make sure you don't think it's just some kind of liberal agenda trying to destroy America. Not that, I understand there's lots of agendas out there to destroy America, but we can't just think that everything that comes new today is against us, you know? I mean, like they say, the old grading scale has been here for many years. And wow, how do you change something that's been around so long? You know what I mean? Without being nervous or scared or even just skeptic of it, you know? Why would we change something that we've had for so long? But we truly need to make sure that we're fair and open-minded as we look at things and consider all kids. That's the difficulty. When you've got 1,000 kids, yeah, this might be best for 400 of them, and this might be best for 600. And that's where I believe the school too, we're certainly not trying to take any shortcuts or try to take anything away, and we're not trying to be the ones that put out the dumbest kids, you know. We don't want to be the community that puts out the losers. I mean, our heart is we're looking into things, we want to be the best for the kids of all ranges. And especially in today's society, take it out of education, after education, I think the rookie will let you know, we have a great shortage in kids leaving school, high school or college, ready to enter the workforce. They simply ain't. So something's not right, something's not working, and we haven't made this change yet, so you can't blame it on this, you know what I mean? Something in the last 10, 15 years is not working as far as reducing laborers, workers.
Look at the influences in the education system for the last 50 years. And look at in 1975, when engineering and science people coming out of college in the United States led the world. And today, we don't have engineers, scientists, or technical people even competing with the Japanese and the Chinese and India.
Now, I don't want to debate anymore. We need to move on. We have a ton of policies to get over. So thank you for all your input on that.
Can I just ask Andrew a quick question?
One quick question. I want to move on.
Andrew, I have a question for you. You said that once they hit the P, you guys are working on other things. Do you guys have something in place to keep them motivated to continue to work, to continue to do their work? Because to answer his question, I have over 10 plus kids that come to my house on a regular basis. When that thing came out, we had a discussion on what's going on in their grades on this, the red, yellow, green, red thing. And they're like, well, once we hit the P, we don't have to do anything else. So is there something in place to keep the kids motivated? Because right now, they're not. They're like, there's no point in me working any more beyond the P, or nearing proficient, I guess. I don't even understand this stuff, but that's my question to you. Do you guys have something, when you guys switched over to this, do you guys have something in place to keep these kids motivated to work for something, to continue working? Because you're going to lose them. I mean, there's a lot of kids that have said that.
What's your question? I just want to get that one move on, so.
That was the question. Do you guys have something in place?
Well, I think kids are motivated by a whole variety of things, and what our goal is to figure out what motivates each individual child. So for some kids, it's athletics. For my kid particularly, but I'm only talking about my kid, I'm not going to misrepresent that. She's never gotten a real letter grade. And she's plumb motivated. She missed one day of school yesterday, and she could barely stand herself because she's worried about getting back and getting caught up. Do I have to do anything to motivate her about that? No, she cares. Right. Now, will she always care? I don't know. I'm going to play that as a job that I have as a parent with my own child. But when we have parents who maybe aren't as involved, what we're trying to do is work with every person back here, every coach we have, every teacher we have, to say, what can we do to get this kid to care? Because caring about a grades game, that's not going to win. That's not going to win long-term and get kids who are employed and contribute. I don't believe that for a second. So.
All right, we're going to move on to principal reports.
Well, I'd like to follow that. All I have to add is I'm really excited about our numbers in tutoring after school, like 129 kids, I think, and we have 80 in intervention. So that's awesome. Good stuff. Any questions for me?
So your shifted hours thing, that's what you're talking about? Heading out to?
Yep, 129 in that after school time. 8 of those being enrichment kids, which is what I offered for the parents who needed after-school care, and apparently only 8 needed it. So, we're good.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Any questions for Mrs. Halls? All right, thank you much. Intermediate.
Nothing further. Any questions, Mr. Chair?
Every one of these opens up different. I just want to open it again. Any questions on the intermediate? All right, thank you. Middle school.
Any questions?
I so much prefer the verbal report. Are there any questions? Nobody? All right, well, thank you then.
I just point out to trustees, there is a video in here that's pretty cool if you get a chance to watch some of the school spirit stuff.
Is it the football?
It's the... That's not gonna open, of course.
I didn't see that one.
It's the Pride Walk when all the younger kids went out to the bus loop and they had the band and the fire trucks and everything go through. Cool. All of our athletes. I don't know why it's not opening.
High school.
Oh, because it's a Facebook video and I'm out of school.
High school.
You know, on my report, I think some of the first few pictures I put towards the end there were just what this building looked like 2 years ago, like yesterday would have been. And it's just amazing where we've come since that time. And just the amazing things that are already happening, you know, as we get, you know, having just done homecoming last week, I just am in awe of our students and just where we've grown in, you know, the past couple of years, and just seeing the great things happening here at the high school. Homecoming last week was fantastic, with the kids going out, you know, involving the younger kids, with the Pride Walk that we did. Yeah, if you look at those pictures, you know, the commons and the auditorium, I mean, you wouldn't even know that that's the auditorium really. And it's just amazing. It's just been a great week. This past week was fantastic, celebrating Lockwood, and I just look forward to, you know, 20 years from now when these kids are actually coming back home and for a true homecoming and celebrating and saying they were here when things first started. It's been a great last week and just great to start the school year. Any questions about anything?
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Next year for homecoming, is it possible when we're releasing all of the themes for the days and everything, it's very confusing for middle school parents because so much of it was, well, the middle school's involved, but like on the dress-up days, but then when a lot of the events are going on, most of the information that was released is not specifying what grade levels it actually is for. So like people didn't know if the bonfire was high school only. There was a lot of parents saying, is the dance high school only?
Sure.
So I think there needs to be a lot more clarification on every grade level whenever this information is released on what grades things actually apply to. And even activities, sports, everybody will say, oh, the volleyball game. But there's 5 years of kids playing volleyball right now.
Correct, yeah, and I guess, you know, traditionally homecoming revolves around high school athletics and high school activities, but I can definitely make sure that we're clarifying that going forward.
But they were including the middle school games in a lot of the
Yeah,
schedule.
we did, yeah, well, it's just like remember we've been following middle school activities, but yeah, I will make sure that we're clarifying all that stuff going forward. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
No, it was an awesome week.
Thank you.
I got to burn little branches that need to go.
I was so glad that those branches were laid.
Did you call the fire department?
No. I almost called the sheriff, some people speeding, leaving the fire, but,
Yeah, there was mostly the side-by-side that was the worst one. There was a couple out
yeah.
there.
I was yelling, I told them, slow down, a couple times.
Thank you.
Sorry! I'm not being crazy neighbor yelling at the kids to slow down.
Yes, sure, that's what you did. All right, superintendent's report.
So it's a couple things to highlight. We did find out today through the FCC, the emergency connectivity funds we applied for this last summer. We did receive $10,800, and that went towards some laptop computers. And then we have applied again for the second round, for quite a bit more actually, for the second round of funding that goes through that. So numbers are up school-wide. Probably this year, I think our A and B might break 1,600, depending on what happens for spring enrollment. But, you know, we jumped from 1,500 students to 1,550. 24 of those were or not quite 24, how many did I say? 23 of those were the early K kids that we added. But also wanted to share this information. I added this to the board agenda this morning after so we meet, our admin team, our principals, and Andrea and I, we meet every 2 weeks on curriculum instruction. So we're talking about some of the stuff that we've talked about tonight, making those type of decisions. And Gwen, our fall window just closed for Ames Web testing. We did a little bit earlier this year because we wanted to be able to be actionable on that information coming off of last year and all the disruption to school and those type of things. So I wanted to share these numbers with you guys tonight. And so this was fall and spring last year. And this is reading grant numbers. So this is Ames Web reading for grades 3 through 8. And keep in mind, Tier 3 is what we don't want. Those are the kids that utilize the most resources, the kids that are struggling the most. Tier 1 is what we do want. So last year, from fall scores here to spring, and these are the same kids. These are kids that were enrolled for the entire year. We decreased the amount of kids that were in Tier 3 by 10% over the course of the year, and increased the kids that were in Tier 1 by 5%. So when you hear these things nationwide about a year of learning loss and those type of things, we would be happy with those numbers on a typical school year. So I want to really point out what great work our staff did last year through all the chaos and all the different changes and those type of things. The second one, I had Gwen share me this so fast that it's got a typo in it. And if you know Gwen, she's a perfectionist, so she's so super embarrassed. So I asked her to pull fall scores for last year versus fall scores this year. And so when she did 2021, she eliminated the first part, not the second part. So this is actually fall of 2020. This is fall of 2021. We don't know what fall of 2022 scores will be quite yet. So
If you get it right, though, buy a lottery ticket.
but the great thing is, and I don't know if this has to do with summer school or the different things we were able to do this year. So sometimes these scores are like the story of Sisyphus in Greek mythology where you push the rock up and then it goes back down at the end of every day. You work all year, you get that progress, but then when you come back and test in the fall, you're back to where you started from. And so if you want to take a look at here, we went from last fall, 34.5 kids. Now this is all kids, so that's why the numbers are different. Not just the ones that stayed all year, but we were at 34.5, so about just over a third of our kids were below where we wanted them to be academically, and this year that is reduced by about 5%, and then again, the kids that are at the area, the minimum that we want them to be at, increased by 5%. So, and just one thing I would add to some of that conversation we had today, as a district, we put more resources towards gifted and talented education based on student count in any district in the state. So to say that we're not challenging our high-end kids, we're doing something wrong with our resources, if that's the case. A couple other things I want to highlight. Tonight is actually the opening night of our Parent Support Center. So we talked about this through the goal-setting process and several other times. Revamping kind of what we did with Family Resource Center, and we switched to a Family Support Center. Just resources, here's some things, take them and do what you want. Support us, we are here to support you. And so from here on out, on any day that we have school, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays, we're going to have people in the old Boys and Girls Club game room that are there. So it'll be counselors, it'll be TAN, our family welfare, or community welfare specialist, excuse me. They will be there, they can answer questions. So if something happens, if you come home and your kid says something happened, it gives you somebody you can go talk to. And why we used our counselors in TANA is those are our folks on campus that know the most about the different resources we have. So, if a family's house burns down and now they're all sudden homeless, they can reach out and say, we're going to have Mr. Crispin reach out to you in the morning, we'll work with transportation, we'll get you a bus to wherever you're staying. We can calm people's nerves and have them get the right answers during those times. And along with that, we've also created a hotline. So at any time, if a parent has anything that they need to talk to a school person about, they can call that hotline, and that'll go be forwarded to someone's cell phone, and they can answer some of those questions, and at least say, okay, I'm going to connect you with the resources when you get back to school tomorrow, those type of things. So just really going above and beyond, trying to work with families, and as we go, we'll start to have different classes in there and those type of things. We're going to really partner with, so like our, the Tough Topics classes that we've had. So we may have folks there at those Tough Topics classes that say, okay, we're going to go ahead and do kind of a series over the next 3 Tuesdays, and we're going to do more information on internet safety or whatever that topic might be. And so just trying to really tap in and be an added resource for our families beyond just the 8 to 5 school day. Parent-teacher conferences are next week. Remember, that's kind of that strange week where we have early outs on, so the elementary will get out at 1:15 and the secondary schools will get out at 2:15 on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for parent-teacher conferences in the evening. And then because of the state laws, there's no school on Thursday and Friday.
Can I just quick clarify on that Wednesday though, for middle and high school, they come in at 9?
Yes, so
Okay.
9 o'clock start. And Mr. Clausen, we just talked about that today. They're going to send out a voice message.
I think it went out today,
Did it go out today already?
at least for the high school.
Okay.
Okay,
And so it'll be a weekly update as well, too, on Friday.
great, thank you.
The other thing that I'm excited about coming up is on the 27th, October 27th, we have our first mental health night. It'll be here in this room, and the counselors have chosen anxiety as the topic, students' anxiety. And so any parents that want to log in, they can either log in and do it virtually through parentguidance.org, or they can come in and be in this room, and then we'll have some folks here that can help share those conversations and stuff. I'll be here as well, too, so. On the last page, there's a couple things I wanted to highlight. We have coming up the 7C Divisional Volleyball Tournament on November 4th through 6th. Mr. Erickson worked real hard to be able to get those tournaments, those type of things, so we're excited to be hosting that. High school and middle school fall choir concert takes place on the 14th, so that is Thursday night, so 2 nights from tonight. And then the last one is, I would just echo kind of what Gordon said about homecoming. I think our students, staff, families have done a great job of building school spirit beyond where I would ever think it would be at this point. Just the crowds that we're getting at ball games and stuff has been awesome. I think this is, it's really starting to hit what we envisioned when we started this whole high school process back in 2013. And I actually stopped in and mentioned it to Mr. D and Mr. Hill today. I actually saw a student wearing, first time today in the hallway, I saw a student wearing a Lockwood Letterman's jacket.
Oh,
So, that's
cool.
something that hasn't been happening probably since Mr. Saber was in 9th grade when they had that. So, any questions on my report?
I just want to piggyback that. Volleyball tournament, there's a hospitality room for coaches and officials. The Optimists are trying to get some of the food, dinner and lunch, or lunch and dinner they're trying to do. If there's any groups out there that can provide lunch and dinner, lunch or dinner for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that would be great. And let Mr. Erickson know.
Are we funding the hospitality room for visiting teams using our facilities? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's a room that food is donated by the community to create a hospitality room for the officials and referee and workers. Yeah, and workers.
I'm not sure if this is the right timing to ask this, but I guess I'll say it anyway. For the activity passes that are offered for our home games, are we going to have a family pass versus the adult and the kid one? Because you got to attend a whole lot of home games to pay for that many passes, and a lot of times you don't know if you're going to have your kid with you at every game, whether it pays to buy them one or not. Like for volleyball, we had 3 home games, so that would not pay for a pass at all. I just didn't know if anybody had considered adding a family pass as a purchase option in there, because...
That's a question I would direct to Mr. Erickson.
Is that his call?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to, we have to cover the code plan every month. We're not changing anything?
So if there's any questions, we can take public comment at this time. I do have the updated Yellowstone County information from last week. It's, honestly, cases in Yellowstone County are worse than they were at the height of, I can't remember if it was February or November last year. So.
Are you guys getting any pushback on changing that, or any variations of that plan at this point, or is everything kind of just moving ahead as is?
Oh, we certainly get public comment on it, I mean, or we get emails and stuff on it. I mean, not overwhelming on it.
There was an article in the Yellowstone County News by one of our students thinking we should have masks.
I'm gonna say.
So is the plan changing?
No.
I'm not sure if you just meant local, but it seemed like last year too, people didn't realize that most pressure comes from a whole lot higher than this line of people right here. I mean, your current president would just soon have us all have masks on and, it's like, so there's always pressure, but.
All right, so we're gonna move on then. Trustee reports, MCEL virtual, I don't think I've got it.
Yeah, so I was going to go over that. So Lori and I talked about it today. Your login is your regular login you have to get onto MTSBA's website. So if you want to just test that, make sure you have the right password, the right login on that. And then we're expecting a link, a direct link to the MCEL stuff to come out early next week. Am I correct on that, Lori?
That's what I understand.
So between now and then, if you just want to test and make sure you can get into the MTSBA typical website to make sure you have your password and your information. So we also got delivered our awards that you guys as trustees earned actually last year at MCEL that were supposed to be handed out. So we have the Golden Gavel from the 2019-2020.
Which I just counted, so it's 29.
So we have 2019-2020 Golden Gavel, and then Pam, we also have your Marvin Heights Award as well too. So.
It'd be fun to actually receive them there.
What about the check?
They multiply times your pay.
Everybody got a 50% bonus.
MTSBA guide for effective work.
Yeah, just something to review just as far as what the expectations are at school board meetings and what the rules are and those type of things. So that was a really good document that they sent out.
All right, we're going to move on to action items, because we have a bunch of policies. If there are no objections to the consent agenda, that will be approved. They're still online. Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. So we're going to jump into policies. Oh my God.
So do you want to just go through the revisions first, Tim, or do you want to go through all?
Let's do the revisions.
Okay. So the vast majority of these are revisions, so we contract through MTSBA for their policy services, so they actually have a couple of attorneys that go through and update these. So a lot of these were based on their recommendations. I'm just going to leave those be for the most part. I'm assuming everybody read the policy notes and why those changes were recommended. I'll go through the few that weren't in the policy notes, and then also some of the ones that differ a little bit from the policy notes. So the first one is, as Chris and I were going through policy 8211, which is a first reading later, which really oversees guidelines for spending federal funds. Obviously, we've had a huge influx of federal funds over the last year, and so just trying to add a policy for that. We noticed that through a couple of our other policies, this one in particular, the spending amount that I'm authorized to do without bringing to the board for approval was $50,000 in this policy, and in our other policies, it's $80,000. And so just wanted to clarify that. I'm assuming that when we raised that a few years ago, that we wanted to raise all of them to $80,000. We can certainly change it back to $50,000, but I'd have to bring all three of these policies back for a different reading to drop it down to $50,000. So I just kind of assumed that we would want that to match you with the $80,000. Now it's Chris's recommendation to make sure that they all match, then there's not confusion about if we purchase something with federal funds and it's $70,000, we have to go out for bid for it, whereas if we purchase something with district funds, we don't, or if we go out for a contract as opposed to something physical, just clarifying that so there's no confusion on that. So, any questions on policy 1332 in that change?
We felt bumped that to 80 when we were building the building, right? Is that what we took it up to?
I think state law changed it to 80, and then we changed it when that policy changed.
Okay.
That 80,000 is the limit in statute.
Okay.
But we changed that when I was here, so.
We changed it when OSB went to $60 a sheet.
So, policy 2420, we talked about this got us to talk about, I think, actually from the standards-based grading and the Mastery Connect discussion. And so, as I was going through it, taking a look at it, I reached out to Chris and just said, is there a way that we can clarify, something like where it just says parent involvement is pretty nebulous. And so I reached out to him just to clarify, to make sure that there wasn't a standard that we weren't meeting within that policy. And he and I just talked about adding this language that's underlined here: the district will provide opportunity for parents to give input through building level principals advisory committees. Just clarifying that that's typically going to be where we've gathered parent input on things like this. When you say parent input, some people might think that that's going to be a survey, that might think it's going to be work groups, those type of things. So just trying to clarify what that consists of.
Can I ask a question? Real simple one on this.
Yep.
The parent advisory committee, I believe, would be with Mr. Klesner. When do those take place?
I do them once a quarter, and so I'll do one probably, I'll just actually put it in my calendar, see what the first month of November looks like, the first week of November.
Is that during the school day or?
No, I always do in the evening, because parents can come afterwards. So it'll be within the first couple weeks of November.
Thank you.
Yep.
So policy 4332, this stemmed from a question I got on one of my weekly updates I do. And so when we do these policy updates, like Chris sends us the policy, the updates, I go through that, the Lockwood's, make sure that we don't have any different language from what they have. I email it back to him. So somewhere along the line, we added this language that says individuals may request a hearing with the board as a whole to petition the ability to regain access to campus. So this has to do with a written no trespass. In the boilerplate language that FTSBA puts out, basically I'm the final judge and jury on that. And so we added this language. I want to say it was in 2013, I think it's in my notes there, 2015. Somewhere when we updated the policy through MTSBA, that line got omitted. And so I'm recommending that we put that line back in tonight, so that if we do get a situation like that, and somebody wants to come in front of the board and plead their case, you guys would have that final decision-making ability, not me. Questions on that? Okay. So that's actually all the revisions that we have. Policy 2240 is listed as a revision in the policy notes, but this is an optional policy that we did not have in place. Obviously now with ESSER's money and the ability that we're going to probably try to run summer school, not just this year, but the next couple of years, it's not going anywhere. I thought we should go ahead and adopt this policy overseeing summer school. So I would recommend that we do a first reading on that. Questions on that one? And then a first reading on another new policy would be 8211. This is the one I referenced earlier that has to do with, I can't figure out how to work my own one. Has to do with federal procurement policy using federal funds. So this is more specific to federal funds. That's where you see that up to $80,000 that can be spent without district. And this one's a lot different than the one that was in the policy notes, just because we do not do our own food service. And so a lot of the language in there had to do with food service. The rest of this language is all pretty much specific to what we need to do to make sure that we don't have any red marks when we get our audit with the feds. And then the deletion of policies is in the policy notes as well. So, any questions on any of those policies?
So I'd like to have a motion for the revision, separate the revisions and new policy and deletions, so there's 3 separate motions.
So I'll motion for the revisions, 1 reading.
I'll second that.
So it's a motion from Sylvia, a second from Kat, to approve the revised policies as presented. Are there any questions from the audience, any of those? Any questions from the board? They're still online? I'm trying to remember there.
They're both nodding, so I think they're
Okay.
okay.
So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Buddy nod?
They both said that.
Okay. Those opposed, and that motion carries. All right, the new policies.
You won't have as much of a lag tonight as,
It must have just so There'd be a weird lag when you're on.
I did it on purpose.
Is that like?
So we didn't forget you. I move to approve the first reading of policies 2240, 4125, and 8211.
I'll second that.
So motion from Kat, second from Betty to approve on first reading 2240, 4125, and 8211. Any questions on those? Any questions from the board on those? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, and that motion carries. And then delete 2312.
I'll move to delete policy 2312P.
I guess I'll second.
Okay, it's a motion from Sylvia, second from Kat, to delete policy 2312P. Any questions on that? Any questions, comments from the board on that? Oh my God, I thought this was going to be painful. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And those opposed? And that motion carries. Oh my God. Lock the booster club.
So Mr. Erickson has been working with some parents to try and get a booster club started. I've included their request. It's a little, there's some to be determined stuff on there because they haven't had a meeting yet. They're trying to get up and running, but they wanted to make sure that it was something the board would approve. So they did reach out, a couple of dads or the parents that Mike's been working with, just to hit all those things under 4330 that are required. Now this one, they do not have their officers at this time. So what we'll do is if you guys approve this, I will come back and present to you who their officers are, or Mike will do that. Jeremy Arthur signed off on this. Jeremy's just a gung-ho dad we have. I don't know if anybody's, I think they're on Facebook, his videos that he does for every football game. Is that Facebook? Is that where he puts them out at?
Yeah.
He creates a unique, he creates like a unique video for every home or every game.
So the parents that are here for everything?
Yeah, they volunteer with all the, Jeremy and his wife. So he's signed it as a parent, so it's not Mike signing it, it's one of the parents that wants to be involved. But he is not the president because they haven't had meetings yet. And then they've given their draft bylaws, which is part of that, and they also have a few things that needs to be determined. They're going to decide if they want to become a 501(c), which Mike and I have done some research. I don't know that they actually can. I think the money has to stay under the school's auspices, just because with activities you have all those Title IX and Ridgeway issues. So there's a few things that still need to be filled out when they meet, but like what the annual fees will be and those kind of things. So I will bring, if you guys approve this tentatively, once this is all finalized, I will bring it back to you, or like I said, Mr. Erickson will. I think this group just wanted to make sure that they had board support and that the board would recognize them as a school support organization.
I'll move to approve the Lockwood Booster Club, because I want to be part of it.
Did I hear president? You meant
No. I heard president, sorry. Like I want a t-shirt.
So that's one of the things we've talked about is like doing an exclusive t-shirt for the Booster Club that you get when you pay your fees,
Okay.
So paying a higher fee.
I need a second.
Oh, go ahead, Lacey.
I can second.
It's all about Lacey tonight.
All right. So it's a motion from Sylvia and a second from Lacey to approve the Lockwood Booster Club. I know they've been working on this, and Mike's been beating on people trying to get them to do it. Anyway, any questions or comments on that?
Super excited.
Any questions, comments from the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? And that motion carries. And I was reading this at you, Councilman, how do we not have?
I swear we did have that day at one point, but Lori and I could not find it in the minutes, so.
Their first meeting's tonight.
Yeah.
Well, as I said,
And they work like every concession stand, so they've got some money that we need to deposit into there. That's what it started from. So, yeah, I told you, I warned you guys, over the next couple of years, we're probably gonna be adding accounts every month or two. So somehow we missed FFA activity account.
How do we not have middle school band and choir?
Well, we had middle school music. And so because we have two separate teachers now, what they want to do is because they want to be responsible for their own fundraisers. So they're going to actually split that money. And Mr. Staten, I think we're going to split it like 60-40, 2/3, 1/3, just because Mr. Staten's done the bulk of the fundraising. But he also doesn't want to leave Mr. Ruff high and dry and no money to start off with. And then we would create again a high school band and high school choir as well, so they can start doing some fundraising as well too.
I move to create a new account.
Second.
So it's a motion from Kat, second from Sylvia, to create the FFA, high school band, high school choir, middle school band, middle school choir, activities accounts. Any questions or comments from that crowd? Any questions or comments from the board? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, and that motion carries.
Buddy, do you want to move to adjourn, or do you want? I'll second.
Motion from Buddy, second from Sylvia, to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, and we adjourn. Thank you all for coming.